HR Basics is a series of short courses designed to highlight what you need to know about a particular human resource management topic. In today's HR Basics, we explore performance management, looking at the tools we use to manage performance, give effective feedback, and great performance documentation. Performance management is the process to ensure the organization connects mission with the work of employees. The activities of performance management include performance appraisal, improvement, and intervention. Performance management involves two related activities: evaluating the performance of your employees against the standards set for them and helping them develop action plans to improve their performance. Outcomes of effective performance management include the following: clarifying job responsibilities and expectations, enhancing individual and group productivity, developing employee capabilities through effective feedback and coaching, driving behavior to align with the organization's values, goals, and strategy, providing a basis for making human resource decisions, and improving communication between employees and managers. Effective performance management depends on the development and implementation of appropriate performance management tools, feedback, and documentation. Performance appraisals guide the process of determining how well employees do their jobs relative to a standard and communicating that information with them. Performance appraisals ensure effective outcomes of performance management are realized. Several terms can be used when referring to performance appraisals. These include employee ratings, employee evaluation, performance review, performance evaluations, and results appraisal. Organizations generally use performance appraisals in one of two potentially conflicting ways. One use is to provide a measure of performance for consideration in making pay or other administrative decisions about employees. This administrative role often creates stress for the manager doing the appraisal and the employee being evaluated because the rater is placed in the role of judge. The other focuses on the development of individuals themselves. In this role, the manager acts more as a coach rather than a judge. The developmental role of performance appraisal emphasizes current training and development needs, as well as planning employees' future opportunities and career directions. Your performance appraisal tool should be easy to understand and to use. Provide clear instructions and examples so managers and employees know exactly what information is required in each section. Make sure your evaluation form follows a logical, sequential order. Document design is critical when creating this evaluation form. Avoid forms that require a lot of jumping around and cross-referencing. When developing a performance evaluation form, find inspiration. Find evaluation forms from similar organizations or organizations that share your philosophy of performance management. Review these forms for characteristics that fit your needs. Get inspired from what others are doing and consider how those tactics might be applied in your appraisal development. Performance appraisals can occur in two ways: informally or systematically. With an informal appraisal, a manager communicates performance feedback on the spot and in specific occurrences. Although such informal feedback is useful and necessary, it should not replace formal appraisals. A systematic appraisal occurs when the contact between a manager and an employee is more formal, with feedback provided at a regular time interval. Both employees and managers know that performance will be reviewed on a regular basis, and they can plan for the performance discussion itself. Most organizations require managers to conduct appraisals once or twice a year, most often annually. Employees commonly receive an appraisal 60 to 90 days after hire, again at 6 months, and annually thereafter. Organizations can require managers to meet with employees on a regular basis, like quarterly, but if managers and employees want additional discussion or meetings, they should schedule those meetings per their needs. While it's up to the organization to decide what elements to include in an appraisal form, there are some recommendations for these elements that I think are important. First, demographic information identifying employee information is critical. A standard rating method selected to reflect the goals of your organization, most commonly no more than a 5-point Likert scale. Then, job-related assessment of performance based on specific job-related criteria that provides concrete examples is critical to managing performance. Self-evaluation, encouraging active participation from the employee, engaging them in the review is an important part of your appraisal form. SMART goals also help in this engagement, providing for clear definition and follow through with desired employee outcomes. Finally, employee development ensures an interactive process regarding training and development needs. These standard elements create a user-friendly and appropriate appraisal tool for your organization. The following is a simple summary of two popular rating methods available for your performance appraisal. First is a graphic rating scale, a scale that allows the rater to mark an employee's performance on a continuum. Then, the slightly more complicated behaviorally anchored rating scale, which is a scale that describes specific examples of job behavior and then measures that behavior against employee results. As no single method is best for every situation, a method that's used in combination of approaches might be the best solution for your organization. Your performance tool should be job-related, connecting the work the individual does with what the organization needs. Your performance appraisal should be directly connected to the employee's job description. Create different evaluation forms for employees and managers. This might mean separate forms for job groups, classifications, or jobs as well. I recommend a flexible form that references a job description of the employee while addressing role-based competencies. Including employee self-evaluation as part of your performance management process gives employees an active role to play. Done properly, employee self-evaluations can provide several key benefits to the organization. Rather than simply being a recipient of feedback from their manager, the employee is given a voice and can inform or shape their performance appraisal and ratings. This active participation helps them to be more engaged with both their performance and the review process overall. And a self-assessment allows a manager to view performance through their eyes. Include space for an employee and people manager to develop and assess performance-related goals. I believe that well-defined goals are among the most effective communication tools available to any leader. So consider using SMART, S-M-A-R-T criteria to craft your goals. To make your goals SMART, it needs to be a continuum of the following criteria. Specific. A specific goal is clear, unambiguous, and focuses on one topic area. It can be communicated to others without confusion because it's well-defined and easily understood. A measurable goal has a definable endpoint and is quantifiable. It's easily measured. An achievable goal is a goal that's possible to accomplish. A relevant goal is one that helps you achieve your human resource plan and is important to them and the organization. Finally, a time-based goal is a goal that has a scheduled completion date. For employees, a performance appraisal can be the primary source of information and feedback. By identifying these strengths, weaknesses, potentials, and training needs through performance appraisal feedback, supervisors can inform employees about their progress, discuss areas in which additional training may be beneficial, and outline future development opportunities. Feedback is essential to any strong performance management system. Although completely eliminating errors is impossible, making raters aware of potential errors and biases helps them reduce them. Many performance appraisal problems are caused by a number of different rater errors. The recency error occurs when a rater gives weight to recent events when appraising an individual's performance. Central tendency error occurs when a rater gives all employees a score within a narrow range in the middle of the scale. Leniency error occurs when ratings of all employees face the high end of the scale. Strictness error occurs when the opposite happens. It's when a manager uses the lower end of the scale to rate employees. The halo effect occurs when a rater scores an employee high on job criteria because performance in one area of assigned work responsibilities is great. The opposite is the horns effect, which occurs when a low rating is given in one characteristic leads to an overall low rating. Both positive and constructive feedback should occur as soon as possible. No performance feedback should be left to an annual performance meeting. I often say there should be no surprises in performance management. It's critical to be specific when providing performance feedback. The Earn feedback model defines a method for communicating feedback for maximum clarity and development. It starts with an event. Provide your employee with the place and time during which an action or behavior which you're providing feedback on was observed. Then the action. Describe the specific action or behavior which you're providing feedback on. Next is the result. Explain the impact or consequences of the behavior or action. Finally, next steps. Make a specific request to change or continue identified action or behaviors, and ask for ideas on how to move forward. Strong documentation is critical in performance management. The challenge is to teach managers how to document performance issues in an appropriate manner. Performance documentation must tell a story, rooted in fact, painting a descriptive picture of employee behavior with words. Documentation shapes expectations where coaching alone can be ineffective. Documentation shows an employee their chance to improve, creating a fair work environment. And if the employee doesn't take that opportunity, documentation is proof that the employer tried to provide the tools and resources for the employee to succeed, and is evidence that a termination decision wasn't arbitrary. Despite these impressive benefits, employers frequently neglect good documentation. Sometimes this happens because they do not understand or appreciate the importance of documentation. Sometimes the employer thinks documentation is too complicated, and sometimes the employer considers documentation too time-consuming. Good documentation creates credibility for the employer by showing that employees are treated fairly and in a consistent manner. However, some common mistakes in documentation are made, like making vague, unclear statements about what the employee needs to do to improve, or adding personal attacks or subjective comments, or finally providing little to no evidence to support decisions to discipline or termination of employees. Documentation can be simple and quick if employers and managers follow these 3 rules for documentation. Just do it, know your audience, and tell the story. Rule number 1, just do it. The biggest problem for many employers is that they simply do not document. So, our first rule is our simplest and most important. Employers need to document. Rule number 2, know your audience. Disciplinary documentation and performance documentation has 2 audiences. Most employers focus and write for only one audience, the employee. While the employee is the primary audience, employers often fail to recognize that they're writing for a large and equally important secondary audience: agencies, lawyers, judges, and juries. Rule number 3, tell the story. The most important rule of documentation is telling the story, factually describing what happened and why it matters. To tell your story in documentation, follow these guidelines. Find the facts, paint a word picture, and don't forget the punchline. Performance management defines the expected levels of employee performance through appraisal tools, feedback, and documentation.